Right, I want us to take this next example on functions. When I look at this graph, it is important that I should know ukuthi graph le. This is the parabola. A1 negative ngoba graph ibheke phansi. Yes. And what other things that I know from here? This is f, so it's this graph, and that is the y-intercept. So we know this value here, it is exactly equals to 8. The value of c there is equal to 8. What else I know? It has got a maximum value. When I look at this one, it graph there in negative. Y is equal to mx plus c. So c lawyer, if this is 8, that means that one is 24. This is 24. Y is equal to mx plus c. Y-intercept, it's 24. So these are the two graphs that I have here. Khumbula ukuthi ku-parabola sisezinga izinto ey'balulekile ey'ntathu. Y-intercept, ama-roots awu-2, and then a turning point. So whatever questions siwabuzwayo, siwabuza around those three. Straight line, sikhuluma ngani? Gradient, the y-intercept. Those are the 2 points that are important. When sketching it, the x-intercept. Okay. As I do this, something comes up. Before I even do anything, when I look at this one, remember what is the gradient? The gradient is the change in y over change in x. So what does this mean? It means it descends y over it descends x will give me a gradient. So that's what a gradient is. All right, so the gradient of this line, this part over that part will give me this slope. Kodwa lapha, ubani gradient yami la? Iwu3, iwu minus 3. So it means gradient yami iwu3 in negative. Uma kusola lapha ku24, uy lowo. So my y is 24 over x. Fanele kube ubani ke la? Ukuze kuphume bani? Kuphume loya 3. So this should be 8. Because 24 over 8 gives us 3. So I can find this x-intercept without struggling. That should be 8. Right, that put aside, let's move on nevertheless. Right, the first question is want us to find the coordinates of A and B. Remember this time, we're looking for the coordinates, ga A, naga B. Now, this is where A is, this is where B is. There's something that we know in these 2 points. We know something go A, sifuna ama coordinates ga A, naga bani, naga B. Konke sesiyazi la ku A. Ubani ongabhalwa la kulo line, y. So we know the value of y there, it is 0. So we know that it's for x yedwa lapho ku 0 lapho y ku A. Ku B, ubani x angimazi kodwa y ubani? Ubani la y, I'm definitely sure that it is 0. Y is 0. But from this information that I was explaining here, this 24 over 8, I know that my B there, the value of x here must be 8. Let's work it out and see what we get. Now, we have to find the coordinates of A and B. This is just hiding us with storama roots, ama x-intercepts. These are the x-intercept of the parabola. These are the x-intercept of that graph. Now, how do we find the x-intercept? By making y equals to 0. Let's do that. This is the graph of y is equals to minus x squared plus 7x plus 8. Let's make, because we're looking for the x-intercepts, let us make y equal to 0. So this will be 0. So let's take everything this side. Because the coefficient of x squared must always be positive before we factorize. So let's just do that. So we're going to have x squared minus 7x plus, it's no longer plus now, we're taking it that side, it's going to also be minus 8. This then becomes 0. That's what we have. X squared minus 7x minus 8 is equals to 0. Then we factorize this. Let's do this thing. We factorize. This is equal to 0. My factors got x squared, x times x, or skipela, x squared. My factors got 8, skipela 1. Let's look at factors of 8. 8 times 1, 4 times 2. What are my factors of my being? There is no way that you can get 7 from 4 and 2, but you can get 7 there. So those are the factors that we use. That's how you determine the factors of what's on the side. It's not only about this number, it is also about the middle term. This is what determines the factors that we'll be using here. The factors that I must use, the factors of 8, they must give me 7 when I add or subtract them. So what is this 7? It is minus 7. For me to get minus 7, 8 must be negative, 1 must be positive. When I add these two, I get this middle term, in this case, which is minus 7. So your factorization is important in this case. So the factors are 8 and 1. So how is 8? 8 must be negative, and 1 must be positive. Exactly. When I multiply this and that, I get negative 8. From there, I go to my solution. So my first root, my x will be equals to, take that on that side, it will be 8, or x will be equals to minus 1. These are the two roots that I have. Now, what are the roots? Are the x-intercept, in this case, of this parabola, epeke parts. So the x-intercept, this is the value, and this is the value. These are the two values that we have. So which value do we put this side, negative? You can see that this side must be negative 1, and this side, of course, must be 8, as we said, using the gradient. But we're not required to find the x-intercept. They were asked in disguise, but the question wanted us to find the coordinates. Just checking your vocab here, whether you understand what coordinates are. So A, R, we already said that we don't know the value of x at A. Now we know it, it is minus 1. So the value of x there is minus 1, and y is 0. And coordinates of B, remember coordinates are always in x and y form. This is, we're looking for the coordinates of B. What is x here? X is 8. What is y here? There is no y here. We only write y is there. So there is no y here. So y is 0 there. So these are the coordinates of A and B in this graph. So sasiyawazi manje. It helps with into siyazi siyifake ku-graph yethu so that we can, when we move forward, sokwazi ukuthi kwenzekelani. That was the first part, 6.1. Let's move on to the next one. Ababeyibize ngo 6.2 in that particular year. Calculate A, the x coordinate of D. All right, let's go to D. This is where point D is. We're required to find point A. The coordinate, find the x coordinate of D, which is A. We're looking for this A. We in the A, x. I know that A, x, B, y. Sifuna x again. But kwenzakalani ku point D? The two graphs intersect. What do I know ama graph amabili mayehlangana? Ayalingana at that particular point. Why is it ayalingana? If ngibuza x we straight line, ngibuza x la, ngizokhomba la. If ngibuza y we parabola, ngizokhomba la. So lawo ama point ayalingana lapho x. Mangibuza y we straight line, nangu. Mangibuza y we parabola, nangu. So it's the same point. So these two graphs, this one and this one, they are the same at this particular point. So if I'm looking for the coordinates, so le graph mangiyibuka futhi ihlangana endaweni engaki. Ihlangana la, iphinde ihlangane la. And ngiyawazi nama coordinates, but angikwazi lawo. So I know that uma ngabe ngihlangana equator lama graph amabili, I'm going to get two solutions ngoba lama graph ahlangana endaweni ezimbili. Kodwa I'm only interested in this solution, not in this one. Asiyenzeni lento. Imaphi lama graphs now? It's this one, minus x squared plus 7x plus 8. That is the graph of the parabola. Sizoyilinganisa yiphi graph? Le graph parabola sifuna ukuyilinganisa ne straight line. Ithini straight line yo? Ithi y is equals to minus 3x plus 24. These are the two graphs that we have. We've got those two graphs. Right, let's do this thing. I'll start with x bezengala. So we're going to have minus x squared. If this comes this side, I will have 10x plus 10x because this will be negative this side. This 24 minus and allows by negative, no minus 16. This side will be left with nothing, 0. So that's what we have. It is important that before we factorize, we look for a common factor. If we don't find it, we make sure that the coefficient of x is positive. Now, how can we make this positive? By multiplying each and every term by negative. So let's do that. So multiply by negative, it's going to be x squared. The next one will be minus 10x. The next one will be plus 16 equals to nothing. This is our trinomial. It is nice and smooth now. And the coefficient of x squared, this value must always be positive before we factorize. It makes life easier that way. Let's factorize because there is no common factor. Equals to 0. Remember that we know that this graph meets at this point and that point. So one of the solutions that we must get must be 8. So once we have this, we know that one of the factors must be 8. And the 8 must be negative in this particular case. Let's move on. So it's 8 times what? That will give us 16. It's 8 times 2. So the x squared, we can get it by x and x. Right, so let's push in values. Because this 10 is negative, the bigger number here must be negative. If it is negative, when I solve it, I will get a positive x as we got in this particular case. Let's do this thing. The value of x then, let's write this one, the sign is positive. Positive times negative. Let me check. This is 8 times 2. Wait. It can't be both negative. Let's just clean it. Let's just clean it. This is 8, this is 2. We want to get positive 16. At the same time, we want to get negative 10. So this is negative 8 and also negative 2. Because these 2 must give me the middle 10. In this case, it is minus 10. Yes, minus 8 and minus 2 will give me minus 10. At the same time, minus 2 times minus 8 will give me the positive 16. Right. Let's find the solution. The final answer then will be x will be equals to 2, positive 2, or x will be equals to positive 8. Right. This is what we want. This is what we wanted to get. We've got 2 places where these 2 graphs meet. The first one, the value of x in the first one must be 2. The value of x in the second one must be 8. Already we know this one. But what was the question requiring us to find? Calculate a. Where is a? Is this a here? No, it is not here. This is where a is. This is the x value at this point. So what is the x value at this point? It is the value that is going to be here. In this particular case, it is 2, as indicated in our solution. So it is important that you should not underline both solutions, because you don't need this one. This is not part of my solution. So you reject one solution. Then you say, therefore, the value of a is equals to 2. This is the value of a, which is x at this particular point. A is x at this point where it is equal to 2. Right, that was the second part. Looking at the third part now, we know this value now, that it is 2. We know this one, that it is 8. We know this is 24. This is also 8. Let's move on. Let me check something. Let's move on. Look at point S, x and y. Where is x? Look at this one. This is where S is. We've got x and y as well. 6.3 is a point on the graph. To S, we point any graph ka F. Yes, this graph is called F. In this case, it is the parabola. Where x way to, this x in particular, x is greater or equals to a, mukhulu kuno a, le number le elayikhulunywa ngayo lo x wethu kuthiwa mkhulu kuno a, x wethu, kodwa mncane kunobani, muncane kuno 8. Yes, it is true. You can see that this value that will be here, lo x ola, mukhulu kuno 2, futhi mncane kuno 8. They didn't want to give us the value of 2. They could have used 2 here, but if they use 2, the answer ka A. So they put it nicely. ST is drawn parallel to the y-axis. This is ST. This line is drawn parallel to the y-axis, right? With T on the graph of G. T, once they say T is on the graph of G, we know that whenever I deal with T, we've got to do it with graph of G. Look at S with graph F. Okay. Determine ST in terms of X. Given 2 marks. Determine ST in terms of X. We need to find ST in terms of X. Okay. What is happening here? Let's look here. A distance from here to here. Which graph is that? Remember, Y. The graph Y. The graph. Which graph is this? It's the parabola. It is this graph. If I'm from here to there, it's this graph. It's this graph. Right? And from here to here, if value is graph, which is what? The straight line graph. So this, the distance from here to here, it touches this graph. Let's get that clear. Now, it means that the graph now. The graph kabani ka F. Now, if I have a line like this one, let me just make an example. If I've got a line like this one, if ukusukala kuzala ku 5 units, from here to 0 lo 5, and from here to there, I see 8. The question would be, What is the distance from here to there? If ukusuka la kuza la ku-8, kubani ukusuka la kuza la? Uma ukusuka la kuza la ku-8, kubani ukusuka la kuza la? How do we find that? We can say, ukuze sithale ukusuka la kuza la kuphela, so thatha yonke le yanto ewubani ewu-8, sisuse lokhu esingakudingi okubani oku-5, sisale nobani no-3. That's how I would go about calculating that distance. Now, sifuna thina bani, let's check ukuthi sifuna ba. Sifuna u-ST. But siyazi ukuthi kusuka la kuza lapha kusinikeza u-S, but kusuka la kuza la kusinikeza bani u-T. Kusho ukuthi u-ST uzoba bani? Kusho ukuthi u-ST uzoba yonke le yanto minus le. So this graph is sitting at this one, the straight line. This next one is sitting at the parabola. So to find u-ST, u-ST would be equals to this graph, which is this one, the graph F. So it will be f of x. It will be this whole graph, which is f of x, minus this graph, g. So it will be f of x minus g of x. So that is how we go about finding ST. But what is f of x? It is this whole graph, which is minus x squared. So ST is then equals to minus x squared plus 7x plus 8, plus 7x plus 8. We are subtracting g of x. Over g of x weight, or minus 3x plus 24. Put it in brackets. It's minus 3x plus 24. 3x plus 24. Then you work it out. It will give us the value of ST in terms of x. Let's do it together. So ST will then be equals to, I break this bracket. That's where I'm going, to break this bracket. I've got minus x squared plus 7x plus 8, this and that. It's going to give me plus 3x, this and that. It's going to give me minus 24. Let's work it out. So my ST, thus will be, I have got minus x squared. These two are the same. It's going to give me, you can see that we're doing the same thing. It's going to be plus 10x. Then this will be equals to minus 16. In fact, I would have just given you that from the previous information. So ST in terms of x will then be minus x squared plus 10x minus 16. That will be the value of ST. So just this distance will be equals to that in terms of x. Right. The last question that I want us to respond to, remember this is the value of ST. Right. The last question that I want us to respond to is to find the maximum length of ST. Now, how do I do that? The maximum length of ST. I've got to find the maximum value of x. Now, if this is ST, kufuneka distance ka ST, fana ngithole value ka x kuthi ubani, ngifake lapha ukuze ngithole the actual length of ST. If I'm looking for the maximum value of ST, I've got to find the maximum value of what? Of ST. Now, how do I do that? I've got to find the maximum value of x. You know that whenever you're doing calculus, whenever you see the word maximum, okay, let me just sketch it here. If I've got this graph has got a minimum value. This graph there has got a maximum value. What is that point? What is this point called? It's called a turning point. What is that point called? It's called a turning point. It doesn't matter whether it's facing up or facing down, it is a turning point. What do we know about that point? Look here, a gradient. A gradient becomes important. This is a slope, this is a gradient, this is a gradient, this is a gradient. But at this point, a slope, we don't have a slope there. We don't have a slope at that particular point. So what is this saying to us? It is saying that it's slope is circular. In other words, gradient is 0 at that time. Gradient is 0 at that time. Remember that whenever you are differentiating, what is the gradient? M is equals to change in y over change in x. Differentiator with calculus, you are able to find dy over dx. So, y gradient. Y gradient. So, to find the gradient, you differentiate. In other words, we know that at this particular point, at the turning point, at the maximum point, there is no gradient there. So using that information, so if we're looking for the maximum value of x there, there will be no gradient. So you let the derivative be equals to 0. We let your dy dx either 0 at maximum or even at minimum. So when we're looking for the derivative of this one, we make it equals to 0. Let's do the thing. So that will be minus 2x plus 10. We are parallel. That's what's differentiator look. So it's about 1 times 10 minus 1. So we have x to the power 0, which is 1. 1 times 10 is 10. When you differentiate a constant term, it becomes 0. So the answer will be minus 2x plus 10 is equal to 0. What are we doing here? We've just found dy dx here. We've just differentiated, and we are writing 0 here because there's no gradient. When you differentiate, so it's fully gradient, and we know that at this point there's no gradient. So we write 0 because there's no gradient there. That's what we have. All that we need to do now is to find the solve for x. So what is it that what are we going to do to solve for x? We've got to take this one that side. I will have 2x equals to 10. So therefore, my x is equals to 2 times bani equals to 10. 2 times number till equals to 10. Ubani the number. 2 times 5 equals to 10. Or x 5. So I do have the value of x now. It is 5. So the next thing that I will need to do is to push in x there to find the maximum value of x. Thank you.